a dad that is watching this, listening to this and thinking, all right, I got this, talent, I have this capability and I want to share it with the world. I want to podcast. I want to start educating people just like you are doing. I want to be a coach. I'm curious if we can dive into, and I've seen that you have these 4 steps and we can walk through each of these individually, but somebody that is ready to make a change, wants to break out and do something more for themselves and for their family. How can they utilize these 4 steps of yours, if you want to jump into these, to really start making and taking tangible steps?
I'm curious where the 4 steps came from, because I've changed a lot of my material in the last year.
So what you've talked about, at least in the past, is look at where you want to be, look at where you are, take the next best step, go back to that first step, right? And
100%.
That seems to me like a fantastic way to approach it.
Cycle of improvement. So the first thing that you got to know is where you want to go, right? So whatever you want, if you're saying, well, I really want to be a podcaster. Okay, great. What does that look like? Tell me about it. Let's dream. Get a whiteboard. You can kind of see it in the corner of the screen, my whiteboard. My whiteboard is covered in ideas. I have several around my house when I have an idea, I can put it on the whiteboard and start whiteboarding this out. Tell me, if you want to be a podcaster, who are you talking to? What does that person need? What are they longing for? What is the thing that you see that they don't? Really fall in love with that state where you want to get to. And so how do I reach that person, right? And then you got to look at where you are. All right, so that's step 2. So I got this. I know exactly what I want to be. I want to be a top 10 podcast in finances. I want to be able to be self-employed in the coaching world. Who am I talking to? Well, I'm talking to me specifically when the day after my principal told me I needed to commit fraud to keep my job. That's who I'm talking to. I have a picture of me. I went to, and I can tell you the day. I just got back from a wrestling tournament. And there's a picture of me in the tournament. I've got my school polo shirt on. I'm all dressed up for the tournament. I printed out that picture and it is framed and bolted to my wall behind my desk. That's the guy I talked to. Okay. So where am I? Well, to reach that guy, I've got to get in front of him. So where am I? Well, I'm shy. I don't know how to tell a story. I kind of ramble. I'm worried about being out there in the world. I'm worried about saying something that will upset somebody. What if my mom listens to this? And then she's going to be mad at me. How do I tell this story that's going to connect with him? He doesn't even know that he's in such a hole. He's so enamored in trying to be the best teacher, best husband, best father possible. How do I reach him? And so looking at where I'm at, of like, okay, so where do I want to be? I want to be that podcaster. Where am I at? I'm at a guy who doesn't know, he doesn't know which end is up. So what's the next best step? This is step 3. I need to learn how to tell a story. Okay, so who do I know that's a storyteller? Okay, I know a bunch of people who are really good at storytellers. I'm going to just reach out to them blindly on Instagram. Oh, one of them lives in Denver. Oh, he actually lives 5 blocks from me. Would he be willing to have lunch with me? Oh, so that's how I met a couple of guys who were really good storytellers. And it was like, how did you learn this? Oh, I learned it from this group and this woman, and she does all these online classes. Okay, so then what's my next best step? I signed up for a class. It's $100 on how to tell a 1-minute story. Sounds like it sounds like something kind of frivolous, but I will tell you that from a sales standpoint, for my firm, for talking to my kids, communicating to other parents, it was the best $100 I ever spent, hands down. Taking that next best step, and it doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be anything that's perfect. And then after you've taken that step, you stop and you go, okay, I have now moved. And you can kind of think, here in Colorado, that we have the mountains. So I've climbed to the top of a hill, and now I can see more trails. I can see more possibilities. Am I still wanting to go to where I thought I wanted to go? Right? Because you've changed.
Yeah.
And so you need to reassess and maybe you do. Maybe you need to change directions. Maybe you're at a different place. And so you start again with the whole cycle to say, okay, where do I want to be? Where am I? What do I need to do? Rinse and repeat over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, if you take off from Denver en route to Australia and you make a 1-degree turn while you're en route, you're going to end up, thousands of miles from where you are. So each time you go back and start over again, that's where you need to reassess. Okay, I have a clearer vision, right? And now where do I need to go from there?
Well, and there's a good friend of mine who's a writer, right? Typical starving artist type. He's written in the last year. He's written 1 movie script, 2 pilot shows, and a novel, and he's trying to sell them. And he's been having a lot of trouble. So where does he want to be? He wants to be a top flight writer. Where is he? He's struggling to sell his book. Okay, what's the next best step? Maybe he doesn't need to sell it. Maybe it needs to be a podcast, right? So now that's all he's looking at is, well, what's the thing? So once he records something, okay, now you go back to the beginning. Is this viable? Do I still want to do it this way? How do I get my material out there? You'll find that cycle is basically applicable to most everything.
Right. So do you throw as much up against the wall and see what sticks, or do you take very decisive actions, learn from it, and then readjust from there?
I always say it's the bias of action, and that's not a Dylan Bain original. I picked it up from somewhere, but I don't know who to give credit to. But the idea of bias towards action. My wife will tell you that, I'm more likely to jump off the cliff and then go, okay, how do I fly? Than I am trying to figure this out. What I found though is that then you're getting too much feedback at the same time. So find the next best step. Find one thing you're going to change. It's like if you want to, my physical health is something that has always been a struggle for me. Trying to keep weight off and trying to stay physically fit. Okay, so if I change my diet, I go to BJJ, I start running with my dog, and then I weight lift 3 times a week. And then things aren't right. Well, which one is the one that isn't right? I have no idea. Or is it because I'm trying to do too many? So I would say, pick one thing. I'm going to go run with my dog, or I'm going to go to BJJ 2 times a week. Pick one thing, do it for 30 days, and then stop and be like, how is this working? Maybe you like BJJ and you find out oh my God, this community and this network that's feeding me. Or maybe you're like, honestly, I just don't like being touched that much. I want more solitude in my life. Okay, good. So rinse, repeat, go out for a hike, spend time with yourself, leave your phone and all your technology there. See what happens there. I'm a big fan of a bias towards action, but I'm a bigger fan of a bias towards a single action so that I can understand what the result of that action is. And that applies to your finances too. If you try to change everything at once, man, you're in for a really rough ride. But if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to try to not eat out 10% less this month. That is a dream is achievable. And you might find out that eating out is actually really important to your mental health. And that happens. And so, okay, so now we got to rinse and repeat. But if I try and change multiple things, I won't know which one is actually having the effect.
Yeah. Well, and it's key to double tap on the fact that the one small thing that you're changing isn't, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 1 month. That's the goal. That's not the step that you're taking, right? So either start with taking the hike or start with the exercise 3 times a week, but don't just say the large thing is the goal. Let's break it down into those smaller pieces.
100%.